What's up, y'all? It is Omari Abasi, and you are tuned into OA Magazine, and it is November. Oh, it's just flying by. What the hell? Damn, this year has flown. So thank you for tuning into OA Magazine. I'm your host, Omari Abasi. I'm an artist extraordinaire. There's nothing I can't do. There's nothing I haven't done. And I'm doing more, because I'm doing this podcast. So thank you for tuning in. So let's get right into it. This week has been crazy because every time I turn around and try to have just a pleasant day, pleasant week, or whatever, someone brings up gentrification. It is like the buzz topic. Everyone's talking about it. Like, when I first moved to Portland, the discussion was mainly about, Seattle and how people can't afford it any longer. It's like it's become this city that everyone loves, but they can no longer afford because, people from like the Amazon people, the Microsoft people, Starbucks people all make all this cash and, they can afford the city and other people can't. Well, the interesting thing is that, Portland is in the process of going through the same thing where it's just really expensive here and lots of people who used to could afford Portland can no longer afford Portland. And, I just recently moved into my own place here and I don't have the standards that I'm used to. I no longer have, but I had to make that sacrifice in order to live here. It was like, if you're going to live here, you're either going to live real nice or you're just going to live. And I decided I'm just going to live. Because I'm not going to go to work every day just to be able to pay rent. Those days are long gone. Like, I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore. It's like, no, I'm over that. I'm going to just have a place and have the things that I want and the things that I need. And the outside of the place or the area is just going to have to suffer. Like, it's not how I am. Like, I moved here for a great quality of life and I have it and I'm good. But the other city that's, to me, that I thought gentrification was always a problem in, and that was New York. Like, I experienced it a bit in Chicago, but not a whole lot. Like, I get it and I understand it, but Chicago's a different animal. Like, I get it, but it's just different. But there's been some stories coming out of New York that are surprising, and they're racially motivated, and that's the problem. I think that's the issue with gentrification, is because there's the whole race motivation, which is the topic again I just don't like to get involved in. But we're talking about being soaked in gin, and that's gentrification. It's like the story that touched me most came out of Harlem, where there's a podcaster who has basically lived in New York for quite a while, moved there from Detroit to pursue, his dreams of being, an artist of sorts. And so he's done that and done it well. Found him a place in Harlem that was affordable, that allowed him to do his art, and he has a job, full-time job, and then he's an artist and a podcaster and does all these things. Well, his rent is going up another $300 per month because other people have decided that Harlem is a closer commute, and now it feels safer for them, so they've decided to move into Harlem. So now these people, and this is what was touching to me. This is what touched me the most about this story, was that he brought up a very interesting point, was that Harlem has always been the place that, minorities were put. that was where they could afford it. It was their own community. It was like, okay, so we can't be in the nicer part of Manhattan, and so we're going to go to Harlem, and no one wanted to be in Harlem, and it was like pretty much left alone. And so minorities built this huge community within that city that's self-containing, that allows them to do and move around and move about and do all the things they need to do within this community. And now it has become a gentrified community. So those people who have lived there for decades can no longer afford to live in the home that they've lived in pretty much their entire lives, and for generations. Not just one single generation of people, we're talking multiple generations of people. The Harlem Renaissance was in the 20s. So we're talking decades of people who have habitated in these nice brownstones, and have built bodegas around there and pizza places and all these really cool places, and become very self-contained. And again, now they can no longer afford it. Well, I mean, they can. There's people who are making it work. They're making it work. However, they feel the pressure of being put out of this community that their families have built for them, thinking long term, well, no one will ever want to live in Harlem because this is where we were placed. This is where this is the portion of the city we were given to build upon, and sort of now it's being taken away from them. And so they have no place to go. So the guy's story was, when his lease is up, it's going to go up $300 more a month. And he has to make a decision of where he's going to go and what he's going to do, because he can't afford the increase of $300 a month. And I thought that is pretty steep when you think about it. Like, say for instance, you're just paying $1,200 a month, and then all of a sudden you're now paying $1,500 a month for the same place. Nothing has changed, no renovations. That's just what your rent is every single month. That you have to figure out how you're going to come up with an additional $300 a month to pay rent. Now you're talking New York. Most people are paycheck to paycheck anyway. Like, no one's really there. I mean, obviously there's millions of people who are doing quite well in New York because you're living in New York anyway. But the average person is not, paying rent and then putting into a savings. The reason why I chose the place that I live is because I can pay my rent with one check and still put into my savings, and then have another whole check for savings or for whatever else I need. And to me, that's just the only way to live. I mean, that was how I moved here. That is how I moved here, because I was able to stow away a full, paycheck every single month. And obviously, if I, open up my boutique, it won't be so easy. I won't be able to do that. But until I get my boutique, I get to stow away a whole check. And in New York, I just don't understand why anybody would want to live like that, where they can't even put money into a savings every month. Like, you need to stow that away. You just need to, because renting is convenient for temporary purposes, because shit can happen at any moment that will make you leave. Stuff can just happen. And it's good. I mean, I have moved someplace every single year. I have moved like 10 to 15 different times in a 10-year time span. And I'm so over it. Like, I don't want to move anymore. I hate it. I just can't do it anymore. But anyway, we're moving off to me. So that was so touching to me. And it was like, I cannot not bring this up. I have to talk about this because it's so on my mind. It's so overwhelmingly on my mind and my conscience that, tens of thousands of people live in these neighborhoods like Brooklyn, and so the guy was just like, moving to the Bronx is out of the question for him. He's like, it's just way too dangerous, way too far. And so he has to consider moving out of New York City altogether. Just because someone else can afford his building, he has to move. So I started to think, well, that just sucks, because like I'm putting all this work into making this place my home, and while it is not the standard that I'm used to, I have adjusted. I've become accustomed, and I'm okay with it. I'm like, you know what? It could use a few new things, and I will take my own personal funds and I will upgrade it to a point and make this place standard for me, But I think it was like, wow, what if somebody comes into my place? What if the landlord comes in? It's like, you know what? He's made this place pretty nice, and I know someone could now afford to pay blah, blah, blah. I'm going to just give him his notice and he's got to go, And I thought, can that happen? And the fact is, it's happening all over this city right now. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Seattle. It's happening in downtown Los Angeles. Like, when I was a kid, no one wanted to live downtown. Only Skid Row people lived downtown. It wasn't like this prime area that everybody wanted to live. You would drive through downtown super fast because you knew you would get killed downtown. And that's serious. It's like you would die downtown LA. You just did not go there. It was not a place. And now they have these beautiful apartments. And so, which leads me to think, where did all of those people go? Because those were like motels and hotels and this industry that I would say people who live downtown were on the skids. Like, they had no money. They were okay living with mice and rats and roaches and stuff. So where did those people go? Where do they live? Because not only does LA not have water, it's expensive as hell to live there. Like, it's moderate. I should say moderate, because it really isn't that bad. I mean, it is, but it on the scale of like New York to San Francisco, it's not that. I mean, it's not quite that far up. But still, if you've been displaced, if you've been put out of your place that you're used to paying $300 or $400 a month for, because you just have an efficiency. And now they've turned it into like 1 and 2 bedroom studios 1s and 2s. Like, where did those tens of thousands of people go? Because in LA, you just because you go from downtown to like, in the like Hollywood, is still going to be expensive. Or are they on the street? But I just thought, this guy is a hardworking guy, trying to live his dream, trying to do what's right. And basically his landlord just was like, yeah, your rent's going up for $300. And I don't know that, I guess the question is, does the landlord want him to pay the $300? Or does he want, him to move? So someone else will. I mean, that's the question I thought. It's like, does that person even want him there? Just because, and it's like, wow, like that's just, the plus for me is if they threw that type of increase on me, I'd be fine. I wouldn't like that I have to pay that much money a month, but I'd be fine. I'd be like, okay, I'm not happy. I think I would start to look around to see what else I could get for my money. But I'd be fine. I wouldn't be displaced. I'd just be disappointed. But it really, at one point I think I could say that I was pretty arrogant about gentrification, because I've moved in a few gentrified buildings in my life. Where a building was at one point kind of a slum, and then they changed it, and then I reaped the benefits of living in it when I lived in Long Beach years ago.